Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Nothing big like yesterday, no Jesus guns babies, no pillows falling from the sky with parachutes. No, just good old-fashioned American consequences for one's actions. Personal responsibility, something here in this country we used to believe in, but sadly the party who said that they were all about it, not so much. And the reason I bring it up is because while there is a court in the land, a federal judge who had the courage to step up and say, you know what, sometimes when a president says something, sometimes they should be held accountable. Now, the former president, the defeated former guy, filed a motion to have this lawsuit thrown out, a conspiracy lawsuit that was brought by lawmakers and two Capitol police officers, saying that, Trump's words on January 6th plausibly led to the insurrection. And U.S. District Court Judge Amit Mott said, look, Trump's words were likely words of incitement not protected by the First Amendment. He writes, only in the most extraordinary circumstances could a court not recognize that the First Amendment protects a president's speech. But, he writes, the court believes this is that case. Wow. That's a pretty big thing. To say, look, words have meaning. Words have consequences. Even big words. Even words that are terrific and beautiful and wonderful and the best words ever and all of that stuff that the former guy would throw out. Consequences. And look, every day we're seeing more and more that the former guy getting a little bit more knotted up. In fact, you've now got the archives and records folks going, hey, DOJ, there was a lot of classified stuff in those 15 boxes. You might want to look at that. There was classified, highly classified information in there. And my thought is why did he take it? Why did he have it? Was it one of those, we're just going to mix these 15 boxes plus of classified material and other records in with the socks? I mean, did it get tied up with the towels? Did he take the little soaps too? Did it just get mixed up? I have so much sentimental value to this classified information. Or, and this is the part that's scary to me. Or was he going to sell it? Is this something that you go, hey, I can make a buck off this? Maybe help pay the legal bills. Because look, he's got a bunch of them. You look at what's going on in Georgia with the perfect phone call. The other perfect phone call, the one that said, no, hey, go check the cushions of the couch. You might be able to find 12,000 votes. That's going to be trouble for him. Now, as we talked about yesterday, my friend Sarah Burris thinks that's going to get him. I don't think so, but we'll see. But it's certainly something that he's going to have to deal with. We also know about, Trump and the kids, their tax problems. That's going to be a problem, especially, whenever you're an accountant, this is, I don't think you need to be a genius to figure this out. But whenever your accountant goes, sorry, we're bailing on you, and we stand by nothing that we've done, I think you have trouble. And then let's not forget about the inaugural committee stuff, because ex-Trump organization CFO Alan Weisselberg gonna be deposed. The D.C. Attorney General's office gonna depose him. There will be words. They may be, I plead the fifth, or they may be, this is all of the inside information. And look, at the end of this, the reports that we're hearing, possibly Trump going to lose the lease on the post office where Trump Tower is. We hear the buildings in New York are basically empty. And we find out today that he's fleecing followers out of resources, saying, hey, give me money, buy my crummy book, buy this, buy that. And he's basically paying the rent on his properties there in Manhattan. So not good times. In fact, one former Trump aide said, it's a huge scam. I can't believe his base lets him get away with it. And I can. You know why? Because I downloaded Truth Social. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do it. Do not fall into that pit of insanity. Do not fall into that hellhole of misery. Do not fall into the kookery that is Truth Social. Don't do it. Save yourself. I have spent 2 days looking at this, and as I told my son, I can feel my IQ going down. I can feel my anger levels going up, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. And for, I think it was like $28, I can get a blue check. Oh boy, I don't even have to be anybody. I can just pay money, and I can feel like someone. And that is what the Trump presidency was all about. That's what he was always about. And I'm still waiting for Devin Nunes, who is the head chief cook and bottle washer over at the Truth Social. I'm waiting for him to file that press release, that lawsuit, that he's suing Trump and Truth Social because belly up it went. And it's one of those moments where I'm really waiting for it. Because there's no surprise in this. None of this stuff is of surprise. I go back to Inauguration Day 2017. And the guests that we had on the program back then were saying, look, this administration is going to be the biggest crook, the biggest set of crooks, the most corrupt, the most dangerous to democracy, the closest to an authoritarian dictator that we've ever had. It's going to ripple. It's going to have a ripple effect for a generation. It is going to be bad. Now, no one said it was going to be as bad as it actually was. And I know the further we get away from it, the more we forget, because, hey, Joe Biden's president. We can take a breath. Things are going to run. Now, our outrage machine on the far right, our chaos merchants, they need to keep people all wound up like JoJo the Idiot Boy. And because that's how they make their money, and that's how they keep people engaged. But most of us are just kind of, And I think this is a lot of where, the mainstream media keeps saying there's an enthusiasm gap. I don't know if there is or isn't yet. We're nowhere near election time yet. If we're 2 weeks out and there's no enthusiasm, yeah, I'll concede that. But right now, I think more people, at least a lot of my friends, are like, you know what? I'm just checking out for a bit. Things are going to be okay. Joe Biden's doing a good job. Happy with what he's doing. I can go back to living a life, which is one of the reasons that people voted for Biden. Kind of calm down. No more, drinking out of the fire hose. No more wondering which dumpster was going to be, being shoved down Main Street on fire. Today, for instance, an interesting day. Can you imagine? Come with me on this journey, if you will. Can you imagine what today would have been like if Donald Trump were in Joe Biden's shoes today as the world looked to the U.S. for leadership in what is going on in Ukraine? Can you imagine? Can you imagine having Trump in the White House today as Putin's about to waltz into Ukraine? And I know, the right loves Putin. I get that. In fact, the one guy had the T-shirt. Oh, actually two. The two Bopsy twins had the T-shirt. I'd rather be Russian than a Democrat. And I'd rather you go over to Russia. Good luck on that. You can buy the ticket. Can you imagine what would have come out? What kind of chaos on the global scale? There's actual talk of the global community figuring out how to deal with this. That's what we want. We don't want someone who's going to say, well, I alone going to do it myself. Only I can do it. Only I am of sufficient knowledge and of greatness that I can do this. No, we don't want that. We want someone who's going to pursue diplomacy but show strength, and I think Joe Biden did that today. I think it's right to point out the fact that Russia has been behind most cyber attacks here in this country and in Ukraine. I think the meddling that they do has to be called out, and in public, Joe Biden did that. And as Biden said today, he's convinced that Putin's going to go into Ukraine. And the fear is that this could be ugly, and there should be a price to pay. I'm not in favor of sending troops on the ground. It's not our fight. That's the Ukrainians' fight to do. But there should be a response. And I'm a lot more confident. I'm a lot more confident having Joe Biden in the White House than I would have been the other guy. Because you remember the one time that Putin and Trump were together, that whole thing. Oh, well, I don't know why Russia would meddle in our elections. I don't know why. He told me they didn't. And that meeting without the translator, the missing notes, who knows where. I think most people, the ones that they claim are being, they're not engaged. I think they're just taking a breath and happy that there's an adult in the White House. That's where I'm at with this. I got lots to get to, lots to talk about today. We got a lot of guests I want to get to. Big day. When we come back, some numbers on the poverty rate. Very predictable. Very predictable. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, not surprising. Numbers for poverty came in today. A new analysis by the good folks over at the Center on Poverty and Social Policy at Columbia University. Their new analysis shows, and like I said, predictably, that millions of children fell into poverty in January. We knew this was going to happen because on January 15th, that $250 check did not come. We ripped away that security blanket in a moment of, in January, really, after Christmas, after the Christmas holiday, when historically layoffs happen and all those bad things happen, that's when you're going to pull it away? Insane. About 3.7 million more children fell back into poverty. I'm going to go back into poverty because the cruel part of this, and this is where the cruel part of this is these kids were in poverty. We showed them that there was a possibility of a better way. We showed them that there was something else that could be a different reality. And then in the most cruel, evil, idiotic way, we ripped it out from under them and said, yeah, you used to have food at the end of the month. Don't get used to it. That was only a short period of time. Childhood poverty increased 41% in 1 month. We now have an estimated 12.6 million kids that are living in poverty. And it's one of these things where you go, Again, it's policy. All the stuff that we do, we choose. And when we talk about budgets, when we talk about budgeting, those of us on the rational side talk about budgets as moral documents. What are your priorities? Is your priority ensuring that the wealthy get their tax breaks and continue their corporate loopholes and continue to pay lower everything rates than they should, that historically that they have? Or is it that, we have problems in this country that need to be addressed? Homelessness, poverty, hunger. Oh, I'm sorry, not hungry. Hunger. We don't use hunger anymore. We use food insecure, which is total BS. The authors of the report, they write in there, while in place, the monthly child tax credit payments buffered family finances amidst a continuing pandemic, increased families' abilities to meet their basic needs, reduced child poverty and food insufficiency, and had no discernible negative effect on parental employment. Which means we gave them a little touch of little help, and parents didn't go, "Hey, we got extra money and screw working, we're rich." Nobody took the $250 and we're going partying. Except, well, the mindset by the one guy who torpedoed all of it. Now, look, before I go beating up on Joe Manchin, and he deserves this, there are 50 Republicans, 50 of them, who have chosen in this moment to allow more children to go to bed hungry. There are 50 Republicans who have allowed childhood poverty to rise 41% when they could have, in this moment, stepped forward and been the vote that makes it go forward. They could have done that. They chose not to. Joe Manchin is the Democrat who said, I don't know. It's excessively generous. That money would be used for, drugs. Parents are going to buy drugs. And that is the right-wing frame, isn't it? That if you give these people, the irresponsible, if you give them anything, they're going to abuse it. And what we know, what the facts bear out, is the reality is the vast majority of people used it as it was intended. Put food on the table. Kids ate. Kept a roof over their heads. Clothes on their back. Medical care. All the things that you would go, everyone who cares about their family and everyone would move towards. Paid the bills, kept food on the table, helped the kids, get what they need for school, all that stuff. Except for, the line is, well, they might buy drugs. And to hammer that point home, I look at Ohio, where the Ohio Attorney General's office, which evidently the Ohio Attorney General's office has a Center for the Future of Forensic Science. They have paired up with Bowling Green University. And I don't know when this started. I got to think it was fairly recently, but they have published a paper titled COVID-19 Economic Impact Payments and Opioid Deaths. And they say that, there's a link between the money that they gave to people and the number of overdose deaths that happened. The Attorney General there came out and said, quote, "The link between the pandemic relief money and opioid overdose deaths is now evident. The intent was to help Americans navigate this deadly pandemic, but it also fueled a tidal wave of overdoses." Because they go, look, back in 2020 when they shut everything down and they gave the money out, deaths went up. And they did. But this isn't the justification. This is not the justification for saying, oh, hey, by the way, we're not doing this anymore. We're not helping families anymore. Yeah, there are problems. And according to Bowling Green University and this this Center for the Future of Forensic Science, The introduction of the economic assistance payments facilitated substance abuse and increased the deaths. Mr. Yost said the throwing money at a problem isn't always the best solution, yet let the data be the guide to learn from the past. Addiction is a sickness, and you can't cure with cash. Nope, you can cure it with treatment. And what does treatment take? It takes cash. And we should be investing in that as well. For me, the lesson out of this is, we knew that we should have known this was coming, and we should have been preemptively figured out how to get these people and help them, instead of going, well, now this is the reason that we don't give any money at all. And speaking of interestingly named think tanks, the Center for the Future of Forensic Science, Texas, I love this story from the Texas Tribune. They say a tweet by the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has reignited concern among some University of Texas Austin faculty members that the purpose of a new conservative-backed think tank may be to restrict teaching about critical race theory. Here's what the Lieutenant Governor actually tweeted out. I will not stand by and let loony Marxist UT professors poison the minds of young students with critical race theory. We banned it publicly. We banned it in publicly funded K through 12, and we will ban it in publicly funded higher ed. That's why we created the Liberty Institute at the University of Texas. And I go back to concerns, some maybe. No, that's the reason they did it. And this is the reason that rich people do this. This is the reason a lot of universities have these wonderfully euphemistically named Liberty Institute think tanks. Rich people have used and soiled the good name of colleges and universities across this country to push their poison at every opportunity. This ain't news. And I want to take this second to enlighten folks a little bit that we have starved education for so long, especially higher ed, and we've moved tuition onto the backs of students that taxpayers used to pay and the wealthy used to pay, because we got to give more to the rich, that these universities are now going out with hat in hand, begging rich people, oh, will you please fund a building and we'll put your name on it and have a crummy institute that will push your poison into our students' minds? You think about the University of Florida. They took $2 million from the Koch brothers years ago so that they could have veto power over any economics professors. Do you think that that's power? Imagine every economics professor for the next 20 years is going to push your kind of economic theory on students. So do we wonder why all of the economists who've been pumped out of these universities buy the same idiotic supply-side voodoo Reaganomic neoliberal nonsense? No, they bought and paid for it. This is where we, you, me, us, the working class, better wake up to the reality is that they are buying, stealing, and thieving and brainwashing and now saying, oh, it's that theory. It's that theory. We got to stop the theory. Because it's not what we paid for, is what they're really saying. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you're just now joining us, make sure you grab the podcast at thericksmithshow.com. Share it with your friends. Comment, rate, give us some thoughts. Love to hear it. Podcast, ricksmithshow.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1688. That was the day Germantown Quakers gathered to petition against slavery in the first documented anti-slavery protest in America. Quaker colonists in Barbados began to question slavery in the 1670s. By 1688, founder of Germantown, Francis Daniel Pastorius, and 3 other Quakers met at Thones Cudner's house to craft a petition. They urged their fellow congregants to abolish slavery. The petition detailed its opposition to the importation, sale, and ownership of slaves. Rooted in the Golden Rule, do unto others as they would do unto you, the men questioned why Christians would own slaves when they would not own each other. They argued that slaves had broad universal rights, including the right to engage in slave revolts in order to assure their freedom. The petition traveled its way through the Quaker network, but many felt it was too weighty a matter on which to take a position. Those Germantown settlers who felt strongly about ending slavery left the Quaker community for the Mennonites. Over the course of the next century, Quakers in Germantown would craft strong anti-slavery petitions that influenced the broad Quaker community in Philadelphia to take a formal stand. By the time of the American Revolution, Philadelphia Quakers published numerous attacks on the institution in Benjamin Franklin's newspaper. They formally banned the ownership of slaves at their Philadelphia yearly meeting in 1776. Throughout the region, Quakers routinely raised funds for those who had escaped bondage to start new lives and help them integrate into the Quaker communities. Quakers would continue to play a prominent and active role in the abolitionist movement and the Underground Railroad. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Corporate CEOs are mostly sedentary, well-heeled money people who would hardly be considered athletic. Yet, every now and then, a few of these soft elites bust out as championship players of an old game called Duck and Dodge. It's a sport of political finesse, played when social conditions reach a boiling point, threatening problems for the corporate order. In such moments, executives sometimes leap forward as social activists, claiming to side with the aggrieved. Ducking and dodging their own responsibility for the grievances, these corporate players insist that they will fix the system. But when public attention drifts, so do the fixers, returning to business as usual. Remember a year ago, for example, when our very democracy was under siege, not only by seditious right-wing extremist groups that stormed the U.S. Capitol, but also by a clique of pusillanimous right-wing Congress critters who joined the coup attempt. Outrageous, shouted members of the corporate establishment, pledging that they would save our democracy. How? By cutting off the huge campaign donations that they'd been giving to those 147 Republican lawmakers who voted to overturn the election. But wait, these born-again democracy champions are the very same corporations that use special interest cash to purchase lawmakers wholesale and steal the people's political power. Yet now they want us to believe they're our saviors? Sure enough, they quickly reverted to their true selves. Within weeks of so sternly chastising the seditious members of Congress, the corporate donors quietly returned to lavishing bribery bucks on them. Some 700 corporate phonies slipped $2.4 million in donations last year to members of Congress they were publicly condemning as un-American. This is Jim Hightower saying it'd make more sense to trust a coyote to guard your last lamb chop than to think that corporations value anything but their own profit.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I'll tell you, I'm still stuck on the point that I was in the beginning. This federal judge, this decision today, I think this is an important moment for a judge to go, you know what? The president does have free speech rights, but there is a moment where you have to hold them accountable. And as this judge said, look, it's likely that Trump used words of incitement that are not protected by the First Amendment. His words, the judge's words, only in the most extraordinary circumstances could a court not recognize that the First Amendment protects a president's speech. But the court believes that this is that case. And yeah, you look at what happened on January 6th. I put it all at his feet. The organizing he was part of, the organizing all the moneyed interests were part of, and knowing he was loading that cannon and pointing it where it went, absolutely he's responsible. But here to share some thoughts on this, that, and all of the news of the day, I've asked our good friend Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a columnist over at the Daily Beast, also a Democratic political strategist, and probably one of the brightest guys I know. Max, thanks for taking time for us. I think I lost you there for a second. Not my fault. Thanks for taking time for us, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's start with this judge's opinion here that this January 6th, what Trump did, the words that he spoke, not protected by the First Amendment, and that he should be held accountable for it. Agree?
Well, this one is tough for me because I tend to be very absolutist on speech rights, very absolutist on using constitutional rights like the Fifth Amendment, like our full criminal justice amendments. But this judge makes a compelling argument. I mean, and there is no real argument outside of the law that what this was not incitement. This is sort of highlights the difference between law and ethics, where it's clear to everyone that Donald Trump went out to that crowd specifically to incite them, had been doing so for weeks beforehand, was approving of what he saw and the result he got. And if that isn't legal incitement, that's more a statement of how our justice system falls short of where it should be than any vindication of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, but isn't this like the opposite of free speech? I mean, generally your free speech rights are between you and your government. This is your government to you. I mean, your government is giving you marching orders. He was saying, we're marching to the Capitol. We're going to do this. And that's where the twist is. So is really there a free speech right that you and I would agree should be in place? But when it's your government telling you to do something?
Well, the fact that it's the president of the United States in his official capacity makes this even more confusing. I mean, one of the challenges that legal experts are raising with this is that we just don't have a situation similar to this in the past. We don't have an example of a president urging people to imminently take up arms against their own country. And that's one of the reasons why we need really clear legal decisions on this, because this is the kind of mistake that we will not survive twice.
Yeah, you mean Clinton didn't tell someone to shoot Al Gore, and then Bush W didn't tell someone to shoot Cheney? Now I can see Cheney go and shoot Bush. I can see that, but not the other way around.
Now, Dick Cheney shot people of his own free will. It was not directed by anybody. But no, like you make the point that with the presidency especially, so much of it we're realizing is tradition and norms that are supposed to be self-enforced by shame or patriotism or a sense of duty. And what we're learning here is we desperately need some ethics laws governing the president of the United States himself or herself. We cannot trust the people we elect to hold themselves to these standards. Donald Trump showed us that. So we put it down in law, or there is no law.
Yeah. Now, I woke up today and I saw the news. The president came out and said that he believes that Vladimir Putin is going, the attack on Ukraine is imminent, that he believes that Putin has made up his mind. He believes our intelligence agencies when they tell him that this is where we're going. I hope, diplomacy is the word of the day, and that this doesn't turn into bloodshed and all of that. But I couldn't help but think that I'm grateful that there's an adult in the White House, that Biden and his team are there, and not, Trump and certainly not the mustache, John Bolton, because I don't know what they would have done, and that frightens me more than where we are now.
Oh, absolutely. And I will admit candidly, in the heat of events that are unfolding right now, I had the luxury of forgetting for a moment that Donald Trump could have been the president during this. And can you imagine for even a moment a president who is already furious at Ukrainian President Zelensky for getting him impeached again, would not only not be defending Ukraine in any way, he would be practically cheering Vladimir Putin on. We would have a situation where almost certainly the United States would be one of the first countries to diplomatically recognize the capture of a foreign capital by the Russian government. And the fact that that is not a fantasy fiction situation is one of the main reasons we need to ensure Donald Trump is never in the White House again.
No, you're right. Because my thought was, and I tweeted this out, I do believe they would have sent Putin a housewarming gift after they took over Ukraine. That's how far down the with a love letter like he was giving and getting to Kim Jong-un that he stole to take down the Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, absolutely. And Donald Trump's fixation on this being about him would have clearly distracted. There would have been no international consensus toward Russia. There would be no meetings going on right now about Russia. This would be Donald Trump on the phone with his friends as a foreign government invades another sovereign nation, something we haven't seen happen to this scale since the 1940s, since World War II. I mean, that's how dire a situation this is. And for whatever faults he may have as a speaker or an inspiring person at times, Joe Biden understands the severity of this situation clearly. And he has a team of experts who are committed to trying to derail this and end this before it becomes a violent, bloody incident.
No, you hit on the point that I started with, which is the world is looking to us as a world leader. When Joe Biden was speaking today, he was the leader of the free world, a role that Donald Trump was never able to live up to. Because he was one of those people saying, I'm the only one, I'm the best, I'm the greatest. You know, that kind of mentality doesn't work in this situation. I think it would only exacerbate the problem. So this is another one of those moments where, you know, thank goodness for elections and thank goodness the American people made the right choice, even though we still have people whining and complaining. And I look at Texas, where the Houston Chronicle did a survey of 143 Texas Republican congressional candidates and the like. And they only found 13 who said the 2000 election was legitimate and that Joe Biden was a legitimate president. So you have an entire party who's basically lost their mind and can't understand that, you know, elections happen and it went against them. I'm dumbfounded in a lot of these moments.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. It's something like 7 in 10 or almost 8 in 10 Republicans share Donald Trump's view of the big lie, that the election was faked by Democrats, that Donald Trump is the real president. And listen, it's as simple as this. When you are facing an international conflict that could easily become a large regional war against an autocrat in Russia who does not respect democracy, does not value democratic norms, it's important that the president of the United States be a person we know believes in democracy. And no Republican can say with honest words that they support democracy in 2022. That is sad, it is scary, but it is also a blessing to this country that Mike Pompeo is not Secretary of State right now, because he would be cutting a deal on the wrong side of this discussion.
You listen to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Max Burns. Max is a columnist over at the Daily Beast. We'll get links out on social media. You can check out some of the work that he does there. Also a Democratic strategist. If you've missed any part of the program, just joining us, grab the podcast, take the program on the go wherever you go. Now, I'm looking at this as someone who is, I'm not a big war person. I'm going to tell you from the beginning, I'm anti-war. I'm not a pacifist. I think there are fights. Sometimes you have to fight. This is a kind of one of those moments where I'm not in favor of sending troops on the ground. I say we support Ukraine where we can. We get them what they need to fight their battle. But the international community's got to join in on this because in my view, and this is where history, you know, learning a little bit of history, my view, you allow this first domino to fall, you know, who's next? Is Poland next? Who's next? How far does this go in getting the old band back together? Because it's my belief, my uneducated belief, that Putin wants to get the old band back together. He wants the former glory of the Soviet Union.
Yeah, no, and that's your uneducated guess is in fact the mainstream, very public position of Putin himself, is that these historic Russian territorial claims should be governed by Russia. They should see themselves as Russian. And if I could say one thing that the American media has gotten completely wrong in this conflict, is that it's being framed now as a fight between Vladimir Putin in Moscow and Joe Biden in Washington, when in fact the Russian government sees this as a standoff between Putin and Europe. This is a test of will to see how far Putin can push the European Union, because they understand that he controls the natural gas pipelines that are keeping Europe heated and powered. And he can flip those switches off, which would be economically devastating to Western Europe. And this here is a test of whether the EU can come together enough to stand up to a unified Russian enemy. And right now, they are not proving that they have got that solidarity.
No, and that's why this is such a big deal. Now, I remember a couple years ago, I had Admiral Sestak on the program, a former Pennsylvania congressman, who said, what we should do is we should just open up the Marcellus Shale and the Utica Shale and all of the gas drilling that is done in this country. We should just open it up and become Europe's gas station. And his argument at the time, and this is going back, 6, 7, maybe 10 years even, right at the beginning of the gas boom. He was saying, we've got to put Putin in his place. We've got to put Russia in their place. And the way to do that is strangle off the gas and become Europe's gas station. And I'm thinking back to that, I don't think he was wrong.
No, Sestak is a very brilliant thinker in this. And this was one of the big reasons that Barack Obama chose his all of the above strategy with solar, wind, renewables, and additional drilling. And he caught a lot of heat from progressives on that. It was an expansion of fossil fuel drilling. But that was really a national security initiative to try and build some buffer for our allies from this Russian behemoth that can essentially decide if Europe wakes up to power or not. And when you have that literal power over whether people freeze to death, it turns out you can make a lot of very extreme territorial claims, and countries will hedge their bets and not take the steps needed to stop you. And for Putin, I think he's learned a great deal to his benefit from this that will not be great for the rest of the world.
Yeah, I look at this, and I have a lot of my friends on the far left who are against all drilling, against all war, pacifist types. And I'm going, I love your passion, but there are times where those absolutes can't apply, and I think we're in one of those moments.
No, yeah, this is absolutely a situation that's going to require in the moment thinking. It's essentially a Cuban Missile Crisis in a much less tropical and much less happy country. And because of that distance, it makes people feel that this is a small country. What does Kiev matter? But when we're talking about fleet basing rights in major waterways in Eastern Europe, if we're talking about controlling natural gas and the flow of energy to most of the world, this matters a great deal. And how we respond to it matters a great deal. If Vladimir Putin is flying the Russian flag in Kiev in a week or a month's time, that will be a catastrophic setback for democracy around the world in ways that will not become clear for years.
Yeah, no, and not a good thing. So do you see that happening? I mean, this is the last bit I want to get in on this. Do you see that happening? Are you in line with the thought that within the next week there's going to probably be an invasion? I mean, there are 190,000 troops from what we're told on the border right now. And look, they've been there. There have been a number of troops on that border for years. This is not new. It's just this large number and all of the armaments that are moving in that direction. That I understand is the new part, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing to think about is we have to think of our opponents and our enemies also as people. Vladimir Putin has domestic political pressures on him as well. He's built up this very large, very public, very expensive buildup in Ukraine. There are large elements of the Russian military and intelligence that are not going to give him an option to back down at this point. That would be a humiliation that he may well not survive.
Yeah.
So he is cornered as much as Europe is. And I think Joe Biden acknowledging that very plainly today was unusual for how we normally talk about foreign policy, but also shows you how clear this is to the people who know the most.
Yeah, I mean, deadly serious global implications. And then we come home and you look at what's going on, the kind of insanity. You got the Jesus guns baby woman driving around Georgia with the bus saying she's the one we've been waiting for. You got Mike Lindell going to invade Canada to drop pillows on the Canadian truckers, and the pillows are going to have parachutes. You've got just all of this craziness going on here. You've got Truth Social. Do you have your Truth Social account yet?
I do not. I'm waiting to see. I'm sure it's going to be huge, and I'll regret it. But I am
Save yourself.
waiting.
Save
it
yourself.
It has a really restrictive terms of service too.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy, but it's. You can buy yourself a blue check for $28. That's that. Evidently, that was the biggest complaint about Twitter, that you had to earn a blue check, that you actually had to have some kind of credential, or you had to actually have some kind of verification. Oh, for $28 you can buy it.
Well, the Trump brand is making cheap knockoffs of things that people actually want, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
There you go. Now I want to get into some of the craziness going on here. Like I said, the woman in Georgia the Jesus Guns baby woman, who's, yeah, I guess it's an interesting bumper sticker. You look at Texas, where they've basically outlawed abortion because it's the baby's part. Um, is this going to be something that gets people to the polls? Because as I was talking about earlier today, there is an enthusiasm gap. Now, I think that enthusiasm gap is because most Democrats have gone, Joe Biden's in the White House, things are going to be okay. I can take the kids to soccer. I can, maybe, clean the house. I can wash my hair. I can do anything else but worry about the flaming dumpster of democracy flying down the road with the latest fire hose of insanity from the Trump White House. I think that's part of it. But is this an issue that's going to, rile people up and get them to the polls?
Yeah. Oh, and we haven't seen anything yet, Rick. I mean, I've told people that this Supreme Court will most likely, even if it doesn't explicitly kill Roe with this decision that'll come out in a month or two here, it's going to substantively kill abortion rights in America. It's going to make exemptions that will create a race for states to first say 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and functionally make it impossible to receive an abortion. And that is a consensus Republican position. The problem for them is when they get all they want, their grievance has evaporated and they have enraged a majority of Americans, including a majority of Republicans who still believe that abortion rights should be at least somewhat legal in America. In the victory march, they're going to march so far to the right that they're going to go right off the cliff.
Right. No, and this is one of those things I've been saying for years on the abortion thing. I've been saying, look, I agree with the Clinton position, safe, rare, and legal. And look, I've got daughters. I hope they never have an unwanted pregnancy. I hope, like all parents do, that they're able to make choices and, all of that stuff. But in the event that they're in a position where an abortion is possible, I don't want them being forced into back rooms or alleys or who knows what of the past that would come back. I want it safe, rare, and legal. And this is, again, what I've been saying for the longest time. The right, it isn't just about abortion. It's about everything else. If you take Roe away, they're going to then go after Griswold and try and attack that, because these are the people who want to go back to the original intent of the Constitution, which is only white landowning males have the power to make decisions. And, women are in the kitchen, gays are in the closet, and blacks are in the field. That's the America that those folks want. And I understand in Michigan, they're trying to prove me right.
No, absolutely. And when we talk about just abortion and the fight for abortion, we're really short selling the really audacious scope of the GOP's vision. The three attorney general candidates on the Republican side in Michigan today said that they would completely support overturning Griswold, and particularly the right to privacy that says that states could outlaw contraception if they wanted to, that they would support being able to arrest a married couple for using contraception if it was illegal. And that really shows you what they're after here. It's not just a woman's right to have an abortion. It's a woman's right to make any decision without government involvement. It's a direct attack on the right to privacy itself, which covers, everything from drugs to homosexual relationship to abortion. We're bringing back essentially morality laws and morality police, which has long been the goal of the Republican Party if people were willing to listen.
Yeah, the Republican, the morality police part especially, because you see it in what's coming out now. Oh, we can't talk about that theory. There's a theory. There's a theory. And it's critical. We've got to outlaw that. And we've got to burn books that might give people thoughts. I'm waiting for a legislator, and I'm hoping that there is a legislator out there listening, especially a crazy right-winger in one of the areas that we're at, that outlaws blank books. Because I think the most dangerous book in the library is the one that doesn't have anything written on the pages, because it could have something written on those pages, and they could be thoughts, and it might make us think, and that is more dangerous than anything.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're preaching terror to the Republicans here. This really is. I mean, we see not just in the CRT fights that are taking over states and Republicans would like to make their main issue, but we're seeing in the banned books. We're seeing now in school boards that are being bullied into essentially removing books like To Kill a Mockingbird, the autobiography of Frederick Douglass, because they offend conservatives' view of what they would like history to be. The fact that it is what history is what's unpleasant to them. Their complaint is that the history is not the one that they were taught as children by people who were sad that the South lost the Civil War. I mean, it really is baffling that this is doing as well as it is. But this is what happens when you have repetition, when you have Fox News and members of Congress and former presidents all pushing the same message constantly. No. That discipline, that repetition persuades people, even to ludicrous things. And I wish Democrats were as committed to messaging on real issues as Republicans are on race theory and ending the right to privacy.
Which brings me to my last line of questioning, because, you know, the reality is Democrats don't do it very well. And I believe, and I think you believe as I do, that we're in a very critical moment, that some urgency needs to be shown, that we need to show some kind of trouble. And it needs to be in our body language, in our messaging, in policy pushes, that this could be the last free and fair election that we see for a while, as states around this country, in fact, 19 of them have passed like 35 or 38 laws attempting to restrict people's ability to get to the ballot box. And looking at what's going on in Texas right now, as they're chucking all of these requests for mail-in ballots. This is danger time. This is, do something. And I'm just not seeing the urgency.
Yeah, this is a point I come back to time and again, is that you cannot ask voters to be more enraged or more committed to an issue than they think their leaders are. And when we talk about how this is the most important election ever, but we don't see Joe Biden out pushing infrastructure victories, talking about abortion, pushing these issues, voters aren't wrong to think, well, if he's not concerned, I won't be either. And I think all that's missing is that sense of energy. And we know Joe Biden can do it. Half of his administration is in Europe right now trying to avert a war, and they are messaging from the same hymn book, and it is effective. They know how to do this. The challenge is that we've just tried to tell every story. And when you try to tell every story, you don't tell any individual issue particularly well. Yeah. And we need to focus on those one or two issues. And one of them will absolutely be abortion. That will be one of the galvanizing issues of this campaign in a way that we have not seen in a generation.
And I'll be interested. I mean, to be honest, I'll be interested to see how this moves the Republican needle. Because you said a moment ago, and I think I agree with you, that there are a lot of Republicans who believe like I do. It should be safe, legal, and rare. But we don't want our daughters, our mothers, our wives, our sisters, we don't want them having to endure what past generations went through, or maybe we don't know what past generations went through. And maybe that's part of the problem as well. But I got to think that there are Republicans out there who are going, this ain't right.
Yeah, a majority of Republican women. And it's because, I mean, let's be honest, in a way, we're going to end abortion became on the right the same kind of thing as we're going to get universal health care on the left. Yeah. It was a point that people didn't actually believe would ever happen, and so never had to think in concrete terms about how it would change their lives.
Yeah, the dog caught the car. Yeah.
Health care.
There you go.
And now they are. And those Republican women are saying, well, wait a minute, this is farther than you said we were going to go. And now they're planning to go farther still. That's going to get a reaction, and it's going to be a big one.
Well, let's hope so. I'm hoping come Election Day we get more people enthused and all out there. But Max, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Our good friend Max Burns. Make sure you check out his work over at the Daily Beast. We're going to take a quick break. If you missed any of the program, podcast, ricksmithshow.com or wherever you get your podcast. Right back after this.
This will happen no matter what we do about emissions.
NOAA warns U.S. sea levels to rise 1 foot by 2050, causing profound flooding.
Officials say the flooding began in the evening, over 10 inches of rain in just 3 hours.
Rio hit with deadly torrential rains, floods, and landslides. Plus, good news for breathers. Biden to restore California's clean car standards.
Hey, I'm a breather. That's good news. All of those stories and more straight ahead for BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
It's happening. That comet is arriving in slow motion, and we've got to do something before it strikes.
Here's an idea, Michael Mann. Don't look up. This is your 13th anniversary Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, today, as it turns out, is the Green News Report's 13th anniversary. Happy anniversary to you.
And to you as well.
That said, unfortunately, we start off with some pretty grim, if predictable, news after 13 years.
Yes, unfortunately. Tragic news in Brazil. Rescue and recovery operations are underway in communities in the mountains above Rio de Janeiro that were hit by 10 inches of rain in just 3 hours on Tuesday. The deluge triggered catastrophic flash floods that caused 49 landslides. As we go to air, more than 90 are confirmed dead, hundreds still missing, and officials expect the death toll will rise.
And all of this, of course, completely predictable.
Yes. Speaking of predictions, here in the U.S., a new NOAA study confirms that U.S. coastal sea levels will rise on average by at least a foot by 2050, bringing higher, more intense storm surges and chronic high tide flooding.
A foot in the next 30 years?
Yes. NOAA scientists warn that America's coastlines will see sea levels rise rapidly over the next 30 years by as much as they did over the last 100 years. That is due to man-made climate change and land subsidence caused by removal of underground oil, gas, and water.
I say we just ignore all of these predictions. It's working out great so far.
Major coastal cities, especially along the Gulf and eastern seaboard, will be hit with costly floods even on sunny days, as much as 10 times more often. In a press conference, NOAA Administrator Dr. Richard Spinrad was blunt.
This will happen no matter what we do about emissions. This report is a wake-up call for the United States, but it's a wake-up call that comes with a silver lining. It provides us with information needed to act now to best position ourselves for the future. It's going to take all of us, government, businesses, academia, communities, citizens, to make a difference in the future.
It may be a wake-up call, but America is hitting the snooze button.
However, Penn State climate scientist Dr. Michael Mann on MSNBC explained that climate action can prevent even worse outcomes.
We're committed maybe to a foot of sea level rise here by the middle of this century, but we can prevent meters of sea level rise. So yeah, some bad stuff is locked in. We're going to need to adapt to that and reduce the suffering that results from that. But at the same time, we can prevent the worst by cutting carbon emissions rapidly.
There are a whole bunch of climate crisis deniers who bought really expensive property on the coast. I hope they don't regret their denial soon.
But some good news. The Biden White House this week unveiled a suite of policies aimed at overhauling and decarbonizing the U.S. industrial sector in order to reduce its climate-warming pollution.
Sweet.
The Buy Clean initiative will leverage the federal government's massive purchasing power to generate demand for cleaner steel, aluminum, cement, and other materials, all made in American factories. The Atlantic reports that the administration will act as an investor and consumer, including actually building factories in the U.S. to spur innovation. The federal government is the largest consumer in the world, spending more than $650 billion on products and services every year. Finally, some good news for breathers. The Biden administration is restoring California's special authority to set its own tougher standards, limiting carbon pollution from tailpipes, which had been revoked by the Trump administration. Plus, the Biden EPA will tighten federal pollution standards for heavy trucks and buses, the biggest polluters on the road, for the first time since 2001.
So the federal government is stealing all our good ideas out here in California. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. And hey, thanks to all of you who stopped by bradblog.com/donate to maybe help the Green News Report stay on your public airwaves for another 13 years. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Are you tired of think tank approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So with all of the insanity of the gazpacho and the invasion of Canada, it looks like the U.S. Senate passed a temporary funding bill. Might not shut down the government, which is probably a good thing as we're on the brink of World War III. Good. It looks like our system did a little bit of something. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, are we on the brink of World War III? Should we be concerned? I'm hoping for a less hair on fire, more reasoned response. I got to tell you, I think Joe Biden did a good job today. But here to give some critique, I've asked our good friend, former Ohio Congressman and political analyst Bob Ney to come talk with us. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
So let's start with the funding. Government not going to shut down. Probably a good thing right now, right?
Well, it's a good thing, but Rick, I think you're kind of downplaying this. I hate to criticize it. This was a profile in courage. We were to the brink, the point of no return, and they all yielded. They got there. They got the cause done. I'm being sarcastic. Okay.
No,
yes.
I got it right from the beginning.
It's a good thing. Yes, it's, no, but I just absolutely love, I'm sorry, the drama out there that, they cut the deals, okay, and that's okay in itself. They don't do budgets. That's my whole point. The budget process, if they, meaning both parties, no matter who's in control for about 15 years, and the Republicans are the bigger sinners because they scream this all the time. Got to do a budget, got to do a budget, unless you're in control. And when they're in control, then they do a budget. So they do these cliffhangers. I will give them credit, though, honest credit, that, fine, we didn't go into, the shutdown or anything, but they just really need to start thoroughly vetting all the causes,
Yep.
All the issues. I think it would be a healthier system.
No, I agree.
Hard
but the
to do.
problem is we can't get through anything. I mean, I'm surprised. Right. The reason this is such a big deal, and everyone's like, "Why?" Your satire is taken as, "Oh my God, you're right. We were almost to the brink because today was the day."
Right. Yeah. So, like I said, I just wish they would, get their act together and continue to do this. But I will give them credit because they can't agree on which, area is the bathroom, so this is okay.
I got to get your thoughts on what's going on in Ukraine right now. 190,000 Russian troops, I guess, on the border. There's Biden's talking that an attack is imminent. Give me your critique.
I think that first of all, the president's making, the right moves. Don't get me wrong on that. He is. He's, the carrot stick, diplomacy, possibility, et cetera. He's involved in NATO allies. But on the other end, there's a lot of, non-harmony, I'll put it that way, in the Ukraine. President Zelensky gets on the phone with our president a couple weeks ago. It's like, hey, can you kind of downplay it? Well, why would he say that? The Ukrainian ambassador, which would be under President Zelensky, to Britain slipped, air quotes for radio, he slipped and said, maybe we might stall off joining NATO for a while. This is a Putin chess game, and I'm not sure if Putin will actually do a full-scale invasion. He might go in, hit a couple places, and back out. I don't think he will be there, in an occupying basis. But he's doing this to stir discomfort and to basically have the Ukraine government at each other, it's successful. He's got the pro-Russian rebels that live in the Ukraine, A lot of President Zelensky's supporters are now turning on him, not because of Putin, but because he's not taking on the rebels like they thought he would. So I don't know that there's going to be an invasion, but I know that Putin is probably going to, put this fear factor out there. And I think Ukraine itself will be like, okay, we're going to kind of stall off inclusion into NATO. That's what I think. I don't think there's an invasion.
And do you think that's the victory that he's Putin's looking for, that he can say, hey, we got what we wanted, now we're pulling back?
I think it is. And the second thing, and I said this, and there's been one article on it, and I, basically threw it out there about a month and a half ago, just thinking because of this Russia-China beautiful relationship. And I think China's looking at this as a fire drill for Taiwan.
Right.
Of how the world responds.
No, and that's an excellent point. That they're looking in the background because they want to take Taiwan and the South China Sea and all the islands that they've been building and all of that. And strategically, if I'm them, I want to do it too.
Right, and so like I said, I think our president has made the right moves. We can't go in militarily to do it. And then you have some new kind of Republican reformers, quote, in the Senate who are saying, don't spend money on the Ukraine because we need to utilize it for China. And, so this thing's all over the board. So I think the president's still focusing and going down, let's put it this way, down the middle of the football field.
Well, let me ask you this, because, this is one of these, this is one of the things that, has been on my mind. If I'm looking at the U.S. from the outside, if I'm China or Russia or even North Korea, I see a country that's in chaos. I see nonsense. I see the gazpacho queen. I see Mike Lindell going to invade Canada to give pillows. I hear a Republican Party that's saying that we should be on Putin's side. I'm hearing all of these things. Now is the time to, in my view, to do all of the things that you want to do, because the view is that we're not united in the idea that we as a country should be involved in it.
Well, that's correct. Look, here's what people will say. People from the right will say, Russia's doing this because Biden's weak. Russia's doing this because Trump's not in office. And that's not correct. I think Russia would be doing exactly what they're doing. I don't think this has any basis that Biden's weak and they would have been so afraid of Trump. I think what the problem is what you hit on the head. No matter what's going on, the polarization, the chaos within the government, the Republicans support nothing. Within the Democratic side, they've had to have internal disputes most of this year, particularly in the Senate. And so, yes, I think that the upheaval here is what gives the ability of these thugs around the world to say, okay, let's do it now. Look, when the pandemic came, China continued to do things in Hong Kong because the world's focused on a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yes, the old saying about don't let a good emergency go unused.
Don't let a good crisis go to waste. If you're just joining us, you're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're with Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman, political analyst. If you've missed any of the program, the podcast is where you go to pick up all of that you've missed. Go to thericksmithshow.com, grab the podcast, take it on the go wherever you go. Also available wherever you get your podcast. So, Bob, I'm thinking about this today, and as I'm watching the president speak, my mind can't help but wander into this world of, the what ifs. What would it look like if Trump were here today? And I couldn't help but think about the press conference in Helsinki and all of the all of the craziness. I guess maybe it's just an exercise in futility. But what do you think that would have looked like?
Well, it would have been more about Trump.
Absolutely.
First of all, it would have been. I've made a beautiful plan. We've heard secretly they think my plan is beautiful. We would have, you can hear the voice. I wish I got to get good at an imitation.
It's such a beautiful plan. Such a beautiful plan.
They loved it. It's and that's what I think we would have heard. Also, there would have been, threats of potential of, not troops in around, but troops on the ground. There would also be a problem with NATO because we were at such odds with NATO, wondering where we're coming from. It would have depended who was in the White House. I mean, if John Bolton was there, come on. Yeah. It would have been, hey, we got the nuke button all warmed up.
But you said that we may have put troops on the ground. I don't know about that because my mind is Trump's still got to be a little butthurt over the Ukrainian perfect phone call and the impeachment. And I would be like, you're on your own. And when Putin takes over, we'll send him a housewarming gift. That's where my mind went.
Well, I never thought about that. He would have stayed off the phone, maybe. I'm going to have a NATO call, but I don't want that other guy on.
It's not going to be the perfect call. All right, let's move to Ohio where there's more chaos going on. What's going on with your maps? You've got a map commission that can't seem to draw a map.
Well, as we all know, the court has spoken in Ohio, and I think that surprised a lot of people. I really do. I think it was a surprise, and so they're going back over the system, which is, of course, the idea that we need something else to be done, and that's what's coming out now. But basically, the Ohio Redistricting Commission has failed to pass a new map. And so what that means, Rick, it has violated the court order.
Right.
Republicans dominate the commission. Republicans, of course, dominate the legislature. And they said that they couldn't comply with the Ohio Supreme Court's redistricting demands and the state constitution at the same time. Now, the Democratic members said, I think it was today, that Republicans simply lacked the will to fulfill, their obligations. So now the Ohio Supreme Court has to decide what to do with the commission that has clearly violated following the Supreme Court of Ohio's decision.
Lock them up.
So the commission and the court are operating under a new set of rules, and that was approved by the voters, a few years back to curb the gerrymandering. So Ohioans don't have the districts for 99 House seats, 33 some Senate seats. We need, obviously, those to be drawn, and they have to elect party nominees on, I think it's May the 3rd is our date of the vote. So their inaction throws everything right now into complete turmoil, and they're basically also, I want to add this note, they're close to violating federal law is what they're close to. So this is not good, obviously.
No, it's not good. And look, they're doing everything they can do to jerry-rig the whole system so they keep their advantage. And in a state that is, 55-45, maybe even a little closer than that, the Republicans overwhelmingly by huge numbers control the legislature, and that's a problem. Now, I do find the argument that yes, we wrote the law, and yes, we're the ones who debated this and put it into place, but we can't follow it. I do find that interesting.
Right, and so so the governor, you're correct, and then the governor and the commission should have passed the maps yesterday on Thursday.
Right.
And that would have got at least, Rick, close to what the court wanted, just close to it. And if it got close to what the court wanted, then they could talk about that. And I think they could have. So you got to ask yourself, well, what happened? Why didn't they do it? Because the people that are drawing these maps, the staff, guess who they work for? They work for the Republicans, and they didn't fulfill the court order. So
now, can the court do this? Can the court then step in and say, if you have failed to do your duty, we're going to step in and we're going to impose maps? Is that a possibility?
Well, I mean, they might be able to. It would be a precedent-setting, interesting decision. The decision to go against the third set of maps, that came after about an hour worth of extreme wrangling, and the Democrats proposed their own maps, which would give Republicans a 54-45 advantage and an 18 15 advantage in the Senate. I used to be there, by the way, when we were 18-15. So the Democrat map would give them an 18-15 advantage and a 10-seat advantage under the Democrat plan, and they rejected that. And when they rejected it, Rick, they didn't propose a new set of maps.
Yeah.
So that is what really makes them, in violation. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but it is very, very possible that this could just go on and cause, extreme havoc. And then the court would have to step in. I don't know that the court can draw. It would be interesting, constitutional question. Somebody better draw it. Well, I mean, they better accept the Democrat proposal. I mean, they're still winning under the Democrat proposal.
In no scenario do the Republicans lose. It's just
Correct.
a matter of they want more, and that's that is kind of the party position. Now, I did find it interesting that the Guardian came out with a piece today where they said of the congressional seats that are already drawn, and they said that there are 335 of them that are officially drawn, that we know what they are. They said only 27 of those 335 congressional districts are competitive. The rest of them are drawn in such a way or in such an area as, you already, before the first ballot is cast, you already know who the winner is. Just 27 out of 335. Right. Has it always been this bad?
I don't think so, because let's look at the year I got elected. What did we have? Senior moment here, but 72 new people. I think that included Democrat and Republican, but I think it was 72 or maybe 77. It was obviously a lot more competitive, even at that point in time. But I can't remember when, in my mind, when we've gotten down to 27 seats and the rest are, unmovable unless something major happens, with one of the candidates.
Yeah, it's crazy. Last bit I want to get into with you is, Trump's some of his legal problems. The big story today is you got a federal judge who said that the lawsuit against Trump by several lawmakers and 2 Capitol police officers can move forward. This U.S. District Judge Amit Met, he said that Trump's words were likely words of incitement not protected by the First Amendment. Quote, only in the most extraordinary circumstances, he wrote, could a court not recognize that the First Amendment protects a president's speech, but the court believes this is that case. This is kind of a big deal, isn't it?
It is. There's 3 cases involving Trump that were a big deal in the last 2 days. The first one you just mentioned is a big deal, also because of the nature of who brings the suit, with the Capitol Hill police officers, number one. That's a big deal case, too, Rick, because the court is saying, as an acting sitting president, you're not exempt. Because you know how normally things happen.
Yeah.
I did it while I was president, so let me alone. This, I think, is a big legal ruling. The second ruling, which I fully expected to go against Trump, absolutely, was that Trump and his children are ordered to testify in the New York Attorney General case. I have said from day one that the Mueller case was not going to be the Achilles heel, but the real heartburn case was going to be this case. And now the judge clearly says, you weren't president of the United States running the company. Of course, the kids did. You weren't president of the United States running the company, and you're going to be deposed. And then the third one is the inaugural committee. I frankly don't expect much to come out of a problem with Trump on that, but that's another thing. It's the Trump inaugural committee. He was the president-elect, and then after that, of course, the president. And the court said you're going to, be liable, and that case moves on. So I think there's 3 big cases, but the first one is pretty big because he was the president. They're not going to let him out as a result of that, and it involves January 6th.
Yeah, I think the one that could bite him, if anything does get him, like you said, is the tax one in New York.
Sure.
And that stuff. But the one in Georgia, that's going to be major heartburn. I don't know how you get out of that other than we don't hold past leaders accountable. And look, and I said from the beginning, I don't see him spending a day in jail. I just don't see that happening. And I still stand by that. I think the tax case thing with him and the kids and the Trump organization and Mazars USA going, we're bailing on our client. I see that being fines and all that, but I don't see jail.
No, I agree with you totally, no jail. But what will happen is, as these suits continue, first of all, the timing, in his decision whether he wants to run again or not, and frankly, if these suits start to add up and take their toll, it's not going to be helpful, obviously, for a run.
And it could hurt the pocketbook a little bit.
It sure can, absolutely. Especially the business. If you want to get to him, do something with the business, and that will surely do it.
What do you say to somebody though? Because I had an acquaintance go, it's just too much. Everybody's attacking poor Donald. It looks like the world's out to get him. What do you say to the person who says that? The world's out to get him. That's why I support him, because he's the underdog fighting everybody.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say his own Supreme Court, our Supreme Court, but he has the majority on it, right? Didn't they rule against him in the election?
Yes.
I mean, they did, and so even the courts, so are they picking on him too? I think it's more of a. I think he had more sympathy of a pick-on status, honestly, during the Mueller case. I think he had a lot during that particular time because he was sitting president. He could beef it up, that he's being attacked. I'm not sure that when it comes to his corporation and the fact that they had numbers and they were supposedly making up the numbers, etc. I'm not so sure that the sympathy factor will be as great. Now, there will be with some people, but I just don't see it as much of a sympathy factor as maybe the Mueller investigation.
Yeah, I go back to the old Beretta theme song. If you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
You do the time, yeah.
Don't crime. That's the message. That's simple. But Bob, I appreciate the time. Great talking with you, man.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Our good friend Bob Ney, former Ohio congressman, political analyst. And seriously, I don't like the idea that I still believe that he's never going to go to jail. I think there will be some heartburn. And I know I'm going to get emails, and please, by all means, email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. But have we done this in the past? Have we held a president accountable for the actions that they undertook as president? And you could go, well, no, we never did that. But we've never had a president crime this much, and that's probably true. The Reagan era, you had a lot of people who were indicted for a lot of stuff, the Iran-Contra, all of that stuff. A lot of people went to jail. This is different criming, so I understand the argument that this is different criming. That this is something that any reasonable person should be held accountable. If you had children, you would most certainly want them held accountable. The tax thing for me, that I go back to the Al Capone. Al Capone got away with multiple murders, but it was tax evasion because the IRS doesn't care, which again is why the right wing hates the IRS so much. I do think, though, if they do go and he is held accountable for this, maybe the IRS will get a lot more popular on the left. Just kind of a thought. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com, that's where you go to get the podcast. Share the podcast with your friends, especially this month being Black History Month. We are doing a series of podcasts for Black History Month, especially for Black History Month, where we go back to the archives of our 2015 Civil Rights Tour and pull out some of the incredible stories of the people that we met along that trip. I'm going to share some of that, a little commentary, some extra discussion to go around it. Great stuff. So make sure you go wherever you get your podcasts. Get The Rick Smith Show as one of your favorites. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Going to talk about what's going on at the VA and how the American Federation of Government Employees are about to ramp up their contract negotiations and maybe what it means for the heroes who are taking care of our heroes. Quick break. Right back after this.
I'm
Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. This day in labor history, the year was 1834. That was the day that one of the earliest labor newspapers in the country published its first edition in New York City. The Man was a paper aimed at trade unionists. It sold for only a penny. The masthead of the paper was unique. Images of a plowshare, sickle, rake, an axe, a hatchet, a saw, a hammer, an auger, a square, and other tools were combined to spell out the letters THEMAN. The newspaper was short-lived, however. It folded in 1835. But The Man was just one example of a growing number of working-class newspapers. The concerns and opinions of working people were often neglected by the mainstream press. In 1828, the Mechanics' Free Press was founded in Philadelphia. The paper declared that the working class are the blood, bone, and sinew of the nation. Its circulation grew to 2,000, but it closed 3 years after it began publishing. 50 labor papers started in the 1820s and early 1830s. Most were printed in industrialized northeastern cities. Perhaps the most well-known paper of the time was the Working Class Advocate from New York City. The paper published working people's news for 2 decades. The years between 1880 and 1940 are considered the golden age of working-class journalism in the United States. Thousands of union and radical papers operated during this era. Many of these papers were published in the workers' native languages, as immigrants were a growing part of the American workforce. Many unions published their own newspapers or journals. These papers were a vital part of organizing the labor movement, especially in an era before television and the internet. Today, the labor press continues to be a powerful voice for working people.
Corporate CEOs are mostly sedentary, well-heeled money people who would hardly be considered athletic. Yet, every now and then, a few of these soft elites bust out as championship players of an old game called Duck and Dodge. It's a sport of political finesse, played when social conditions reach a boiling point, threatening problems for the corporate order. In such moments, executives sometimes leap forward as social activists, claiming to side with the aggrieved. Ducking and dodging their own responsibility for the grievances, these corporate players insist that they will fix the system. But when public attention drifts, so do the fixers, returning to business as usual. Remember a year ago, for example, when our very democracy was under siege, not only by seditious right-wing extremist groups that stormed the U.S. Capitol, but also by a clique of pusillanimous right-wing Congress critters who joined the coup attempt. Outrageous, shouted members of the corporate establishment, pledging that they would save our democracy. How? By cutting off the huge campaign donations that they'd been giving to those 147 Republican lawmakers who voted to overturn the election. But wait, these born-again democracy champions are the very same corporations that use special interest cash to purchase lawmakers wholesale and steal the people's political power. Yet now they want us to believe they're our saviors? Sure enough, they quickly reverted to their true selves. Within weeks of so sternly chastising the seditious members of Congress, the corporate donors quietly returned to lavishing bribery bucks on them. Some 700 corporate phonies slipped $2.4 million in donations last year to members of Congress they were publicly condemning as un-American. This is Jim Hightower saying it'd make more sense to trust a coyote to guard your last lamb chop than to think that corporations value anything but their own profit. The Hightower Radio Lowdown is made possible by you lowdowners who subscribe to our monthly newsletter, The Hightower Lowdown. You know who you are. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I understand this, if I'm getting this right, our friends over at AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees, they're preparing to begin negotiations on a contract renewal with the good folks over at the Veterans Administration, the VA, to make sure that the people who are taking care of our heroes actually get taken care of. the heroes caring for our heroes get taken care of. Maybe we should think about that. Maybe we should talk about it. Decent wages, hours, conditions, dignity, respect on the job, all of that stuff. And like I said, this is kind of an interesting moment for me, kind of one of those rubber meeting the road things. The Biden administration's been great on labor issues, as far as I've said. He's walking the pro-labor walk, which I think is great. But here to share thoughts on how this negotiation could go. I guess it begins on March 1st. I've asked BB Roberts to come talk with us. BB is an outside counsel for the American Federation of Government Employees National VA Council. I assume one of the folks going to be doing the negotiations. BB, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you for having me, Rick.
So walk me through some of this. I guess this is going to fire up on the 1st. How contentious do you imagine this is going to be? That I think we have a friendly administration. What are we expecting?
Yeah, we do. We have a friendly administration. It's a big change from the prior administration, where we narrowly escaped a Trump administration imposed agreement right after the Trump administration, FISUP, the panel that breaks impasses, made a decision on our agreement. President Biden won. And on day 2 in office, he issued an executive order undoing President Trump's executive orders. And immediately after, the VA then agreed that we would start over again. We would not follow that panel's order, and we would restart bargaining. So that is one thing that came out of a friendly administration. And I agree with you. President Biden is walking the walk. Even Secretary McDonough of the VA is walking the walk. What I can say about what we expect in negotiations is that some of the people, the career employees, the employees who are not political appointees, but that were career employees at the Department of Veterans Affairs, were unleashed under the Trump administration. And because they're career employees, they are still there. So we do expect this round of negotiations, where we start March 1st, to be very contentious.
So what you're expecting is the Trump appointees, the people who are still there to try and sabotage this, if I'm getting that right.
So not the appointees. The appointees are gone. These are Biden appointees. It's the people under them, the people who've always worked at the Department of Veterans Affairs, those people who felt an awakening under the prior administration want to see that continue under the Biden administration.
Now, but here's the thing, as I've talked to, throughout those 4 years during the Trump years, I was talking to government employees, fairly regularly here on the program, and the atmosphere was negative. It was confrontational. In fact, Trump right from the beginning did a whole bunch of things, like throwing the union out of offices, trying to undo the collective bargaining process, and taking away office space, and taking away time to investigate grievances, and all of this stuff that has that been restored? Did that come back to where members are being serviced again, the unions back in the workplace helping them?
Yes, so that's one of the things President Biden did on day 2, was to undo those executive orders, and the Department of Veterans Affairs did return the unions to the facilities, return that official time so that they're able to represent employees and that they're able to bargain on behalf of those employees. What we're seeing in the proposals the VA has given us under this administration, again, those career employees who want to continue what was done under the prior administration, are proposals that are very similar to what President Trump did in his executive orders. So now they're trying to put it in our contract so that they can have a contract that removes the union's official time and ability to be able to bargain on behalf of employees, and the ability to represent those employees.
Why would you want to?
We're seeing some similarities.
Why would you want to put something like that in your contract? I'm confused. Why would you be fighting for that to have less representation? I'm confused on that.
You and I both. So, the question becomes, what is to be done for the career people who want to slow walk President Biden's agenda, right? So when President Trump was in place, he complained about career employees slow walking his agenda. Now, under President Biden, we have career employees slow walking his agenda. It's the exact opposite is happening now. And we're seeing similar proposals. For example, on official time under the President Trump executive order, they wanted to reduce official time to 25%. Now, under President Biden, the career employees have given us proposals to reduce it to 30%. That is the time the union uses to engage in labor management relations with management. And now they've said 30. So they've moved a little bit towards us, right? It's not the 25% that Trump proposed, but 30 is not much better. So there are career people who are slow walking his agenda.
It's interesting. I mean, I have no idea why you'd want to, put handcuffs on yourself while you're engaging in trying to make lives better. And I guess this is one of those things where, you have members who are ideologically possibly opposed. This is the only thing I can come up with, that they're ideologically opposed to union in the workplace, and this is their way of killing it off. Am I anywhere near on the right page there?
Right. Management is management at the end of the day, right? And there are managers in both parties, and there are some management officials who would like to kill the union off, and they feel the union is a hindrance to their agenda. But if they actually take President Biden's agenda to heart, the workforce is the backbone of these government agencies. And if the pandemic has shown us nothing, it is that we have to take care of employees or they will flee, they will leave. Okay. And so making sure employees are happy, that they are feeling safe in their workplace, and that they don't feel like they will be removed at the whim of a rogue manager are the things that make the Department of Veterans Affairs a good place to work and an inviting place to work. And that's what the union is interested in doing.
I now figured it out, and thank you for explaining it. Because I'm thinking, why would your members be putting these kind of things in? It's the management that's left over from the previous administration, going against what the administration wants. I now get it, and look, absolutely now it makes complete sense that you have a cancer within the VA that is causing all this to go on. I now got it, which then becomes the question: what happens when the administration says no, this isn't what we're interested in? Is there a way to override this middle management stuff? Is there a way to go beyond this? How do you see this playing out?
I hate to point to the Trump administration for something they did well, but I have to say one of the things they did well was to get management in line. And they did it by fear and force. They threatened jobs. They put it in performance plans. We lost a lot of managers who did try to slow walk President Trump's agenda, and they're gone. They are not there anymore. And so it will be interesting to see if, Secretary McDonough does the same and puts pressure on his middle managers to actually follow President Biden's agenda and his own agenda, because again, he has walked the walk as well. He's been doing the talk, and he has reached out to labor. So we don't think it's the secretary level at all. It does seem to be those middle managers.
No, this is fabulous. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're here with BB Roberts. She's an outside counsel for the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE's National VA Council. March 1st, they're going to begin negotiations on their next contract, hopefully much better than the last one that Trump tried to impose upon them. Now, here's the thing that I know. For years now, we've been talking about the VA, the heroes who care for our heroes, especially coming out of this pandemic. They're double hero status in my mind, but a lot short. I remember a couple years ago, one of the former presidents of AFG on the program was saying, hey, we're 49,000 people short. We need to be bringing more people into the workplace so that people aren't overworked, overburdened, overstressed. How much of this is going to come up in the contract negotiations?
Oh, we think it will come up a lot. Again, we're still in the pandemic. I mean, we're hoping it'll phase out soon, but we're still there. One of the things the VA did, and that Secretary McDonough is still doing, is trying to make the benefits package more appealing, to be able to pay people more, to again make it an inviting place. One of the things that will counter his efforts are things like the Accountability Act. People seeing that they could be fired at the whim of a manager might negate his efforts in increasing pay. It doesn't help so much to get more salary when your job is on the line and you feel at will, right? So that's one of the problems. Another thing President Biden did do in when he came into office with his executive order was he did open up and state he elected on behalf of agencies that they should bargain over what we call permissive subjects. And permissive subjects are the numbers of employees. You can think of that like staffing, and the methods and means of performing work, which are permissive. Agencies have to elect to bargain those things in the federal sector. And that is something President Biden has elected on their behalf. So we do expect that that will come up during bargaining. We will talk about staffing levels and the methods and means of performing work, again, to make the VA an inviting place for employees to want to work and stay.
Yeah,
we need to maintain the employees we have,
so that they have a voice in their job. I mean, I say it all the time. One of the key reasons that I've been a union member all my life is to have that say in the place where I spent, a good majority of my working life. I can't imagine what it's like to be not only have no control over what you do, but also be in an at-will situation where you can be fired for any reason whatsoever. Now, clearly in public sector negotiations, which is where you guys are, we hear people say, the dreaded government unions. You're handcuffed in only what you can negotiate on. It's not about wages and benefits. That stuff is all set by Congress. It's about the other things. It's about the quality of life kind of things that I think are really important, and the representation. The fact that you can't be fired for no reason whatsoever, that there is due process in place, and there's a procedure that has to happen for someone to get fired. I think important for everyone. How much of that's going to come up in this negotiation?
Oh, that's a big part of the negotiation. So the VA did agree that we'll only reopen 12 articles instead of the whole 57 in that 2011 agreement. But one of those articles is the discipline article. So the VA wants to impose what's the current process for the Accountability Act actions, which only currently apply to suspensions of over 15 days, demotions and removals. Those procedures lower the timelines to just 15 days. So the proposal to a final decision, all within 15 days, just for those major types of disciplinary actions. The VA has reopened that discipline article because they want to impose those same timelines on even the lower level disciplinary actions, less than a 14-day suspension, reprimands and admonishments. And they even want to remove one of the levels of discipline. So it kind of heightens the level of discipline that can be had against employees. And again, to truncate that process means they're going to get less effective representation to defend themselves. And that is something that, again, is not going to make the VA an inviting place for people to want to work. And it's not going to maintain the employees we currently have. So it'll be a big part of our negotiations because, again, we want the VA to be competitive. And we're going to have to fight against them making it non-competitive.
No, I don't care about competitive or not. I want people to go there who love what they do, are treated well, live a decent life, and take care of the people that we put up on a pedestal and call heroes. At the end of the day, if you're shorting on the people, on the heroes who are caring for our heroes, there's something wrong with your definition of hero. Just my thought.
No, I agree with you. Again, and you can't forget, a third of the VA employees are veterans themselves. So really, they're heroes, serving heroes, serving heroes.
So how big is the VA when you think about how many employees we're talking about? When you're 50,000 short, how large of an organization is this, and can one contract cover everybody?
Well, the VA is about, I believe it's about 280,000 employees. AFGE is their largest bargaining unit, but they do have 5 unions at the VA. So although I think we're bigger than all the other unions combined. I think we're almost double all the other unions combined. Getting those 50,000, again, it takes pressure off the current employees, right, because the work does not lessen because the VA isn't properly staffed. Those veterans still need care. And so that becomes a morale issue for the current employees who have to get that done. Employees will use more sick leave if they can't get a rest and relaxation. So we do have to get the VA to a place where that 50,000 is just unacceptable. We have to have more employees hired, and you can only do that if you are a competitive employer.
So last question I've got for you, because I'm sure people want to help. Is there a way for us to help? I mean, obviously this isn't, you're not going to go on strike. There's going to be none of those because it's illegal. There probably aren't going to be many public opportunities to get out and scream in the streets. Is there anything for us to do to help? Is there a way for our listeners to go, hey, we want our heroes that take care of our heroes taken care of? Is there a way to do that?
Absolutely. I think if everyone can, reach out to the VA, reach out to their Facebook page. They do have a Twitter account. Reach out to their public relations department and let them know they do need to have a fair contract for their employees, because this agency is too big to fail. And it's not something that they should do away with in contract negotiations. Taking care of the employees, which, as President Biden said, is the backbone of the workforce. They are the backbone of the agency. They need to take care of employees and deliver a fair contract.
There you go. BB, I appreciate the time. Really great talking with you.
Thank you very much.
I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. This should be a no-brainer. This should be simple. But you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Approved corporate news and commentary? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute. Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Check out the website, thericksmithshow.com. Some good news on the labor front. We're seeing lots of organizing like we talked about last night at Starbucks. I see Apple stores are starting to unionize. There's talk of that. Amazon, we're seeing a lot of activity there and a lot to come. And Amazon's grocery component. This great story at Amazon Fresh out in Seattle, I believe it was, where you had workers who marched in and posted their rights to join and form a union, and the chaos that came out of that. When people finally realized that, you have the right to organize, you have the right to talk to your coworkers in the workplace about unionizing. That is the law. Once people figure that out and figure out that, hey, we have this, wow, maybe they'll do it. One of those things I've been saying for a while. We need to do just that. In fact, there's a unionization vote coming up at the Amazon facility in Staten Island. All eyes are on this. Potentially a good outcome. Now, Amazon doing what Amazon does. Amazon doing not just what Amazon does, what corporate America does. What we saw from Starbucks, the kind of heavy-handed tactics that they're employing right now trying to fire people who were already, they voted for the union, they're already in, now trying to harass and intimidate them, to send a message to everyone else, to make people sit through these anti-union captive audience meetings. One of them just today, the folks with the Coalition to Defend Amazon Workers, they have filed a legal challenge, a legal complaint with the NLRB against Amazon because, well, they had a captive audience meeting wherein they came and said, well, the employer, they may cut your wages down to minimum wage. You might get nothing. Things might get really bad around here. Be shamed if, something bad were to happen, which you're not allowed to do. But employers get away with it all the time. This is not new. This is the kind of stuff that I've been talking about for years. And finally, I think people have had enough. And finally, people are speaking out and doing something. One of the things that's going on is at Hershey Chocolate. Now, Hershey, your Hershey bars, your Hershey Kisses, the Rolos, Twizzlers, all those kind of the Hershey brand, candies, all those are made by union workers. Those are BCT GM workers here in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Some of them, check the label, made in Mexico. Don't buy those. But the ones made in the U.S. are made by union members, and I highly suggest you go there. But Reese's has been one of those vehemently anti-union. And in fact, a lot of the employees are like, no, we've got it really good, But now, pandemic forward, the folks at Reese's Peanut Butter Cup not happy because evidently they're now calling it Hershey's Prison. They're being forced to work, sometimes 70 days in a row without a day off, forced overtime, punished if they have the audacity to take any time back. And now you're starting to see them coming around and unionizing because they want some power and some say in the workplace. And I think this is a great thing. Good on the folks at Reese's. Anything we can do to help, all in favor of it. Because here's the thing. I look at what's happened in this country and how we've pitted workers against each other, and masterfully so. I look at this woman who stood up in front of these Amazon workers and went through the whole anti-union spiel. The whole, you could lose everything you got. You could end up with nothing. You end up with all these worst case horrible scenarios, to plant the seed of doubt in their mind. Oh my God, I could be worse off. Really? Oh, we can't do this. No, and they know that people are skittish. They know that the unknown is something that most people fear, especially when you're teetering on the edge anyway. And they exploit that. I do find it interesting that the woman who gave the captive audience meeting, as one of the organizers pointed out, is wearing a $1,200 goose down jacket. You go, I guess I know which side she's on. And when Jay Gould said, I could easily pay half the working class to murder the other half, she was the other half that he was talking about. She was on the half that would murder the workers. But here's the thing. We're seeing this kind of organizing, and it's good stuff. Also in downtown Michigan, Midtown Detroit, there's a coffee shop. If I ever get there to Michigan, I am going to Great Lakes Coffee Roasting Company. They are right now engaging in a strike for union recognition. This has not happened in decades. If this goes a positive way, this could be something that reignites that kind of old school organizing that my grandparents' generation engaged in. Fine, we're not going to take a vote. You recognize that we signed the cards, you recognize our union, or we're going on strike because they have the right to strike. It's great stuff, and something that we're most certainly going to take a look at, and we're going to reach out to those folks. What a crazy week this was. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Any of it caught your attention? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Missed any portion of it? Download the podcast at the website or wherever you get your podcast. Remember, it's Black History Month. We've got the Black History Month series out. Make sure you grab a hold of that. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people